world is running out of time to get global warming under control. The co-chair of the report insists it's now or never.
Emissions of greenhouse gases need to peak within the next 3 years if we're to stave off the worst effects of climate change.
We have a governor and we have a cabinet that doesn't believe that this is a major issue.
It's supposed to be 70 degrees today. It's freezing here. Speaking of global warming, where is we need some global warming?
If you actually believe that global warming is the biggest problem we face, you're the dumbest son of a bitch on the planet.
Satellite data show for the last 17 years, there has been no significant recorded warming.
As they say, climate change is a monster that we cannot fight against. Live here, then you will feel how you will know how it feels.
Because there's something fundamentally wrong with the economic model. The more the economy grows, the more the environment starts to get worse.
Everyone was convinced that oil supplies were running low and people were spending hours in queues for petrol.
The situation would still be critical and would probably result in rationing of gasoline and fuel oil in this country.
The world's top experts, based on a complicated computer analysis, predicted that the world's oil reserves were about 700 billion barrels, which would have lasted 35 to 40 years at then current consumption levels. But scientists have come up with technologies that have improved the efficiency of oil exploration and exploitation. 15 years later, the estimated oil supply was 1,000 billion barrels. In 1996, it was estimated that a 20 years old person with HIV would live to a maximum of 39 years. Once again, scientists have come up with a new method of treating people with HIV, and in 2011, the estimated life expectancy increased to 70 years. Now, we are battling a climate crisis, so the scientists will come along again and solve the whole problem, right? December 2015, 196 countries have signed up the Paris Agreement. Its aim is to limit the increase in global warming to a maximum of 2 degrees Celsius, and if possible 1.5 as in the pre-industrial era. I don't want to say that it's impossible, but already the temperature of the Earth has risen by 1.2 degrees Celsius. To keep it at 1.5 degrees Celsius, we would have to make a drastic changes in all sectors that produce greenhouse gases. The highest temperature that has been measured on the planet was 56.7 degrees Celsius in California Death Valley. But Jacobabath in Pakistan may be one of the hottest and perhaps most uninhabitable places on the planet. And according to recent study, the Jacobabath, city of 190,000 people, has reached a temperature where the human body can no longer cool itself more than once. Many people move elsewhere in the summer, but because of his work, he and his family have to stay in Jacobabath.
Sometimes when I work, I get dizzy. I feel like my body is drained of all its energy, but I have no choice. If I don't earn money, I can't feed my family.
These people can read or write. They don't know about any global warming. If the temperature of the Earth rises to a maximum of 1.5 degrees Celsius, we can still save them. But if we get to 2 degrees Celsius, we can't help these people anymore. Do you know what else happens when the temperature reaches 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius? For example, we will be more extreme temperatures. Oh wait, this is already happening.
Pakistan's climate change minister said the floods have destroyed 45% of Pakistan's croplands.
Europe is in the grip of its most extreme drought in decades.
The river levels here are forecast to drop to what many shipping companies and monitoring agencies say is a critical level at which it will become all but unnavigable.
According to NASA, the last 7 years have been the hottest on record. If there was only 1 year that was the hottest, then nothing happens and it's just a coincidence. But 7 years in a row, almost all over the world, every country recorded higher than average temperatures. On 18th of March, a record warm spell was recorded at the Concordia Dome Sea Station in Antarctica, when they recorded a temperature 47 degrees Celsius warmer than average. By the way, Antarctica is the coldest place on Earth. Did you know that there is an overshoot day? It's a calendar date on which humanity's resources consumption for the year exceed Earth's capacity to regenerate those resources that year. In 2020, it fell on 22 of August, and a year later, we have already spent these resources on 30 of July. This means that we need second Earth to sustain our consumption. Another fact is that the citizens of the European Union can sue it for polluted air. The European Union made this decision because air pollution causes 300,000 premature deaths a year. So, if it can be proved that air pollution is to blame for a person's ill health, then they are entitled to compensation. Now, let's play a little quiz. What do you think that happens when temperature of the earth reach 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius? A. Lack of food and water. B. Increase in migration. C. The threat of further pandemics. D. Even more extreme weather. If you answered A, B, C or D, you have answered correctly. The assumption that water is available and safe to drink and that our food supplies are sufficient may not be true in the future. More frequent and severe storms, floods, droughts, high temperatures, changing weather patterns mean considerably more difficult conditions for farmers. These weather extremes will not only make farmers' work more difficult, but also develop a climate for the faster spread of disease such as cholera, malaria or Ebola. Ebola can survive in animals for years without making them sick, and it's passed on to humans after contact with an infected animal. Food shortages in the poorer ones force people to look for alternative food sources, which include bushmeat such as bats. Around 50% of the spread of the Ebola virus is due to bushmeat. This will mainly affect the poorer regions, but in the time it will also affect the more developed regions as people begin to migrate due to the high heat and lack of food and water. According to the World Bank, climate change will force 216 million people to leave their homes by 2050. We can no longer prevent this, we can only slow it down. Reaching 2 degrees Celsius will already have extreme consequences. But imagine if we reach 3 degrees Celsius. This is what Hollywood excels at, as it loves to depict what would happen if the world came to an end. These movies are fiction, but they are a great representation of reality if we were in a 3-degree world. Berlin, Paris would be baked at high temperature, floods in New York City would destroy parts of the city, and much of Africa would be uninhabitable. When we know that global warming is changing our lives in profound ways, when we know that we are facing extremes of weather, lack of food, water, migration, high heat that will make our lives many times more difficult. Why do we hear so little about global warming in the mainstream media? Well, maybe it's because I'm exaggerating.
It's supposed to be 70 degrees today. It's freezing here. Speaking of global warming, we need some global warming.
And it's not that bad with global warming.
Satellite data show for the last 17 years, there has been no significant recorded warming.
Well, maybe, or global warming has not yet caused a dramatic crisis. The phrase canary in coal mine originated in the old days when a cage with a canary was carried into the coal mines. Here while mining, the miners hung canary from the ceiling so that if the gas escaped, the dead canary would make it clear that it was time to quit and come up for air. the gas rises up and even a small amount will kill the canary. Do you remember what it was like with the war in Ukraine? For 8 years, Russia and Ukraine fought together, but nobody in the world cared. There was a mention in the media here and there.
Now on the brink of a civil war, at least 70 dead so far and the death toll rising. At issue, should Ukraine have closer ties to the US and Europe or Putin's Russia?
Not much emphasis was placed on it. February 24, 2022.
И во исполнение ратифицированных Федеральным собранием 22 февраля сего года договоров о дружбе и взаимопомощи с Донецкой Народной Республикой и Луганской Народной Республикой мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
It was such a huge crisis that March for Peace in Ukraine started all over the world. Fundraisers were organized, countries created sanctions, and all the media wrote about this crisis. Another example is the 2011 earthquake that triggered a radioactive leak at Japan's Fukushima nuclear power plant. A year after that, the International Atomic Energy Organization halved its estimate of new nuclear capacity by 2035. Not only that, but the crisis also seems to be helping the development of new technologies. It was the crisis that helped the birth of bicycle. In April 1815, a volcano pushed a cloud of ash and dust into the atmosphere, causing a dramatic change in climate. The following year was also known as the year without a summer, which caused famine and many domestic animals had to be slaughtered or died of starvation. It was the decline of horses that inspired Karel von Drais, a German inventor, to make a means of personal transport. He was able to replace those losses and allow the rider to cover several kilometers per day. The bicycle would have been created even if this crisis had not happened, but certainly accelerated the whole process of its development. Okay, I don't want to be fatalist and take the view that there is nothing to do but sit back and wait for the first devastating blow of the crisis and hope that it will not come too late and it will be strong enough to rouse people to action. With global warming it's more complicated because it is slow and there is no point in waiting for a major crisis. Rather, I believe that through a coordinated effort we can confront the most serious problem of our generation, but we are likely to require a significantly higher level of cooperation and media coverage.